The lawyer's office smelled like old leather and expensive cologne. I sat across from Mr. Henderson, my great-uncle's estate attorney, staring at the documents he'd just slid across his mahogany desk. My hands trembled as I read the words for the third time. "I don't understand," I said, looking up at him. 1,000 acres? Uncle Bernard owned 1,000 acres. Mr. Henderson smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he'd been waiting for this moment. "Your uncle was quite the land investor, Miss Chun. He purchased his property back in 1962 for next to nothing. Its worth, well, let's just say you're a very wealthy woman now." I'd barely known Uncle Bernard. He was a family eccentric, the one who never married, never had kids, and showed up to exactly 2 family gatherings in my entire lifetime. The last time I saw him, I was 12, and he told me I had kind eyes. Apparently, that was enough to make me his sole heir. "There's just one small complication," Mr. Henderson continued, pulling out a map. "About 15 years ago, a developer managed to lease a portion of the land, quite a large portion actually, from your uncle. They built a residential community called Meadowbrook Estates, 237 homes. My stomach dropped. A whole neighborhood is on my land? Technically, yes, but they have a lease agreement. However," he paused, adjusting his glasses, "the lease expires in exactly 60 days. Your uncle chose not to renew it before he passed. Why wouldn't he renew it?" Mr. Henderson's smile widened. "I think you should read this." He handed me a worn leather journal. I spent that evening in my tiny apartment, reading Uncle Bernard's journal by lamplight. His handwriting was sharp and angry in the later entries. March 15th. "Those Meadowbrook people are at it again. Today, the HOA president, some pompous woman named Constance Whitmore, sent me a certified letter, demanding that I maintain my portion of the perimeter to their standards. My land, my trees. She actually suggested I hire a landscaping crew to match their aesthetic. I built that access road out of courtesy, and this is how they repay me? June 2nd, Constance and her little HOA board came to my house today, uninvited. They wanted to pay for extending their sewer line across MY property. When I refused, she actually said, 'We're a community of professionals and business owners, Mr. Bernard. Surely you understand the importance of cooperation.' I showed her the property lines. She didn't like that. September 30th, the final straw. They've started fining me. The HOA is attempting to levy fines against me for not complying with community standards. My lawyer says it's unenforceable, but the audacity. They think because they built their little kingdom on my land, they own it. Time to remind them who holds the deed." I closed the journal, my heart pounding. Uncle Bernard had died before he could execute whatever plan he'd been forming, but he left me all the pieces. The next morning, I drove out to Meadowbrook Estates for the first time. It was exactly what I'd imagined. Pristine lawns, identical mailboxes, streets named after trees that had been cut down to build the place. Every house looked like it had been designed by the same architect and painted from the same 3-color palette. I parked my beat-up Honda Civic in front of the community center. Before I could even get out, a woman in tennis whites marched toward me, her face already arranged in displeasure. "Excuse me," she called out. "Visitors need to check in at the gate, and that vehicle doesn't meet our community's standards for street parking." I stepped out, smoothing my jeans. "I'm not a visitor. I'm the landowner." Her expression flickered, confusion, then recognition, then something cold. "You must be Bernard's niece. I'm Constance Whitmore, HOA president." She didn't offer her hand. "We've been expecting contact from this estate. I trust you'll be renewing our lease under the same favorable terms." "Actually, I'm here to discuss the lease expiration." Constance's smile was thin and sharp. "There's nothing to discuss. We have community here. 237 families. Surely you're not suggesting." "I'm not suggesting anything yet. I'm observing." I looked around at the perfect lawns, the judgment in her eyes. "Tell me, did my uncle ever mention why he didn't renew the lease?" "Your uncle was a difficult man, unreasonable. He didn't understand community standards." Or maybe he understood them perfectly. I pulled out my phone, opening the photos I'd taken of the journal entries. Did you really try to find him for not trimming trees on his own property? Trees that were here 50 years before your development. Constance's face flushed. Those trees were blocking sight lines and decreasing property values. We offered reasonable solutions. You demanded he'd pay for your infrastructure improvements on his land. It was mutually beneficial. For you, I met her eyes. I'm giving you and your board notice. 60 days, as per the lease agreement. After that, we renegotiate or you relocate. The color drained from her face. You can't be serious. We have rights. You have a lease. Had a lease. Read the terms, Mrs. Whitmore. The next 60 days were spectacular chaos. Constance called an emergency HOA meeting, which I attended uninvited. I sat in the back of the packed community center while she rallied the homeowners. This outsider wants to destroy our community, she declared. She has no understanding of what we've built here, the standards we've maintained. The standards you try to force on my uncle? I stood up, and every head turned. The same uncle whose land you're living on? Let's talk about standards, Mrs. Whitmore. I've spent the last month reviewing everything. The documented harassment, the attempted illegal fines, the demand for infrastructure payments. A man in the front row stood. Now wait just a minute. We paid good money for these homes. To a developer who leased my land. Did any of you actually check who owned the property? Did your real estate agents disclose that this was leased land with an expiration date? The silence was deafening. I thought not. I walked to the front, holding up the folder I prepared. Here's what's going to happen. I'm offering a new lease. 30 years. Fair market terms. But there are conditions. Constance sputtered. Conditions? You think you can dictate? I own the land, Mrs. Whitmore. Yes, I can dictate. Condition 1. The HOA will not, under any circumstances, attempt to enforce rules on property outside your development. That includes the surrounding forest, the access roads, and the old homestead where my uncle lived. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Constance looked apoplectic. Condition 2. 10% of the land will be designated as community green space. Real green space, native plants, wildlife corridors, no lawns. My uncle loved those woods. They stay. A woman in the middle raised her hand. That actually sounds lovely. Constance whirled on her. Barbara, you can't be serious. Condition 3, I continued, louder now. The HOA will establish a community fund for maintenance and improvements, but you'll handle your own infrastructure. No more demanding property owners foot your bills. And if we refuse? Constance's voice was shrill. I smiled Uncle Bernard's smile. Then in 60 days, I sell to a developer friend of mine. He builds industrial parks, warehouses, distribution centers. I believe he mentioned something about a 24-hour trucking depot. The room erupted. Constance tried to shout over the chaos, but she lost them. People were actually reading the lease terms I'd handed out, seeing the fairness in it, seeing the alternative. A middle-aged man approached me afterward. I'm Robert Chun, no relation, I assume. He smiled. I'm on the HOA board. Constance doesn't speak for all of us. Your terms are more than fair. We'll vote on it next week. The vote was 187 to 50 in favor of the new lease. Constance resigned the next day, moving to a gated community 2 towns over where I heard she immediately joined their HOA board. 6 months later, I stood in what was now officially Bernard Shaw Memorial Forest, watching kids from Meadowbrook Estates explore the nature trail I'd built. The community had transformed. The green space became a point of pride. People actually talk to each other now, united by something other than lawn regulations. I kept Uncle Bernard's house, visiting on weekends. The new HOA president, Robert, stopped by one Saturday with fresh coffee and pastries. Thought you might want to see this, he said, handing me a photo. It showed the old oak tree at the forest entrance with a plaque. In memory of Bernard Chun, who understood that real community isn't built on rules, but on respect. My eyes stung with unexpected tears. He would have loved this. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, Robert said quietly, leaving it all to someone with kind eyes. I laughed, remembering that long-ago family gathering. He said that to me once. I thought it was such a weird thing to remember someone by. Not weird, wise. Robert raised his coffee cup. To Uncle Bernard. And to you, for finishing what he started. We touched cups as the sun filtered through the trees. The same trees Constance had wanted removed, now protected forever. In the distance, children laughed, and somewhere a neighbor caught a friendly greeting to another. Uncle Bernard hadn't just left me land. He'd left me a lesson that entitlement crumbles in the face of actual ownership, that communities thrive on mutual respect, not tyranny, and that sometimes the best revenge is building something better than what came before. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the memorial plaque, then opened my messages to my cousin Jennifer, who'd asked what I was doing with my surprise inheritance. Building a legacy, I typed. Turns out Uncle Bernard knew exactly what he was doing, and in the rustling of those ancient trees, I could almost hear him laughing.